So a very good evening to everyone present here, and thank you for joining us today for our 45th IDC Alumni Talk. Thank you, Jhumkee, for taking the time out to talk to all of us. I have the pleasure of introducing you to the audience here. You graduated from IDC in 1984 and then went on to Tufts for a master's in human factors engineering. You're the founder of User in Design, a design consulting firm, and Ohrna, a global social enterprise creating artisanal products. Through Ohrna, you find the culmination of all facets of your experiences as a designer, practitioner, teacher, presenter, and writer. Above all, you believe in the ultimate purpose of design, which is social good. With that, over to you, Jhumkee.
Thank you, Nimish. It's my pleasure to be speaking to you all here today, and on a topic close to my heart, design as a tool for inclusion and social good. And the setting you see over here is where it all began, the journey that I'd be speaking to you about today. So as Nimish mentioned, my education is, kind of between the engineering and the design, as well as some more deeper into human factors engineering. And I've spent, big parts of my career in the US and in India. So I speak and think with both of those perspectives. And, I've worked in design strategy and projects, teaching, and then presenting, writing along the way. And all through my career, I've been interested and, associated in some or the other way with some kind of social work or NGO work. And now I'm into social entrepreneurship. So these are the sort of current and most recent of my roles, and spent most of my career in industry, in the corporate world, and kind of ended up in academia almost accidentally. And I started enjoying it. With the increasing recognition that I started to feel that design has a very big role to play in society, and adding that component into the mix is what led to Ohrna being born. And the name Ohrna is the Bengali word. I'm a Bengali. It's the Bengali word for, in Hindi, what we call Ohrni. So I'll speak to you today about Ohrna, who we are, what we do, how we work, and the journey that has brought us to where we are today. I think fundamentally somewhere I started to feel more and more strongly that design is a tool to be doing something bigger. And looking through all my corporate experiences, this is like a very generic product development methodology that exists in all corporations in some shape or the other. And my training has taught me to place the customer at the center. That's how, my whole focus has been people-centric design, people-centered innovation, keeping the customer always at the center, in center of the whole process. With Ohrna, the maker became the other central piece to what I was about to embark on. And not just that, became a very, almost a starting point of what I was looking to launch into. Because I really felt that design is a tool to be used for inclusion and social good. And so with no experience in textiles or in fashion, I launched Ohrna 4.5 years ago, minus 2 years for COVID, of course. And creating products like this, which I'll speak about a little more, in the benefit of girls and women who are homebound. So that's what Ohrna has been all about. Um, Starting with a vision to generate employment opportunities for homebound women who lack employable skills or are forced to migrate for work. They don't have any skills, so there is no possibility for them getting work and being able to earn a living. So Ohrna, really, it started not with a business plan, but more with a feeling. And some of the feelings that went into it happening is I started to think about, what about women who can't leave home? So I used to conduct workshops. I've been teaching at IIT Kanpur, and I used to conduct. I've conducted a few workshops for youth in rural areas, rural Maharashtra, about 2 hours away. I'm based in Pune, and about 2 hours away from here near Satara, villages over there. So through that, I came across some of the women over there. And I realized that women who can't leave home, there is no way for them to ever earn a living. Through this whole experience, and my interaction with the women, I was hugely inspired, and I continue to be hugely inspired till today by a lot of these women who conduct themselves with so much grace and dignity despite the tremendous daily barriers and struggles that they face. And at one point, I think it just hit me in a couple of encounters that how easily our situations could have been reversed. I could have been in her shoes and she could have been in mine. And I think the only thing that was different between the two of us was the education that I had an opportunity to receive, an amazing opportunity to get the kind of education that I have. So these were some of the feelings with which Ohrna happened. And this is Seema, one of the women in the village. And this is what she talks about. She says, and she's one of the very, very, very wise and she's really full of wisdom. So she says there should be something more to life than just school, getting married, and having children. Is this all what life is about? So this is what she was asking herself and discussing with me one day. And she had the strong desire to do something. But what do I do, right? So she started looking for work, but then social restrictions prevent her from working outside. Tremendous social barriers. So some of the things that I started to observe, that women in rural India or women even in urban India who are homebound, they lack opportunities to earn a living for various reasons. A big part of which is social stigma around leaving home for work. It exists in a big way, and that's what I have found. Lacking employable skills because they never got any formal education or any kind of trade skills that they can tell someone that this is what I can do for you, and so can you, will you hire me? And of course, they don't have their own voice or their independence. So with the design thinking kind of training and the teaching and everything, where we take any problem and uh, frame it as a how might we statement. So this is where looking at the opportunity, how might we empower these women to gain a sense of self-worth, a sense of self-confidence? How can they earn a living without needing to leave home, right? And what kind of skills can make them employable? And what are some of the ways to build confidence and respectability for them? So that they can get a voice, so that they can stand on their own 2 feet. So this is the question that was going in my mind. Can design with a purpose serve the underserved and maybe even inspire, right? So this is a hypothesis with which I started, that design can become a basis for empowerment among people with low literacy and skill only if the vehicle chosen is a contextually relevant medium. Started to think their context, I started to observe their contexts. And I realized that if I want to work with them, if I want to be associated with them, then I need to look in their worlds. My world of designing control systems or software apps doesn't figure in any way for me to connect with them. Their world is mainly about cooking or maybe about sewing and stitching. So I chose the second of those. And that's how Ohrna began, with the mission of focusing on upskilling homebound and rural women, and/or rural women. The mission also chose to work with only sustainable and organic materials. And that's what we started with. That's what we live with even today. And to preserve some of the craft traditions and integrate them into contemporary products. So I had encounters with several craftspeople in our country where they lament about how some of these crafts are dying. So I felt that in whatever way it needs to integrate and into products. So bringing it all together to my background as well in product design. So some of these beliefs, that became the foundation of what Ohrna was to be. That design is a powerful tool for social good. When you uplift a woman, you really uplift their family. And this is Rihanna, also one of the artisans who worked with us. A sustainable future, I believe very strongly, is the only way. I don't think we really have a choice. And as I mentioned, opportunity is the only difference between the us and the them. And that the belief that we need to build on our past, right? So this is what Ohrna's beliefs started with. So we are based in Pune and working with women in rural Maharashtra from villages surrounding this area. We source regional fabrics directly from weavers, and they're based in different parts of India. I try to source always from the people who actually make these. People-centered design, which is what my bread and butter has been for many years, and looking at the customer as user. This is how I envisioned. So I started to create products, certain just things that came and popped into my head, and the things that also I chose to work with jute. Jute grows in Bengal, which is also a connect with my roots in Bengal. And it's one of the most sustainable fibers. So, coming back to the people-centered design perspective, through which some of the products were envisioned, not all of them. But here's an example of, when you're sitting in a flight and you're working, most of us have to work on the flights, and you have your laptop, your maybe a notebook, a pen, your boarding pass, your phone, maybe a book, and maybe some bits and pieces of, paper or whatever. All of those you try and take and sit down, so that when you sit down, you don't have to reach up into the overhead cabin again. And so I started to observe these this isn't one example, and I'll speak to you about the product a little later. And then the second aspect of it was the homebound maker. So what is possible for women like the ones I was wanting to work with? What is possible for these women to learn and to make, right? And then having decided to work with jute, what designs is jute suitable for, right? So the example that I was talking to you about, this is the prototype that happened, through the experiences, like we come up with products, in trying and understanding users' problems and then pain points and everything. And then this became a product. Using jute, it got incorporated, and it's a product today that we have. So what are some of the product possibilities and then making it into a product. So this is some of the products followed this path, not all of them. And then I discovered fairly early on that myself making a product and then having to teach that to someone else to make it, particularly someone who doesn't have very many skills, was a whole different ball game altogether, right? So now looking at the customer as the user, as I told you, that the pain points and the challenges that customer faced. Now, this is the other customer that I had chosen to work with, which is the homebound maker. So, what about the homebound maker? What were the issues with them? So, I found that craft becomes a great draw because they love to work with color, with the colors and the joy of craft, the joy of creating something. And then empowerment happens as a consequence. So this is Jyoti. She had never held a pair of scissors in her life till then. And, she started to cut jute. And this is Ranjana, who has been with us for about 4 years now. And I'll speak to you about her a little later. So thereafter, just designing the products and trying to creating the prototypes was not enough. It was very important to make them easy to learn and easy to make. Those were very big challenges. How would someone with very minimal skills, how would I teach them how to make this? And how do I adapt the design so that it is easy to make, right? So what we do is we create products. This is what Ohrna is about. And also to explain to you, Ohrna is like the Hindi word for Ohrni, and it gives a woman, the reason for the name Ohrna is it gives a woman comfort, shade from the sun. It gives a woman beauty and all of those factors. So that's what that's what the Ohrna name is about. So using jute as a base fabric, we combine with regional Indian fabrics to create designs that are contemporary, but a touch of tradition, right? So these are some of the products, some products for the home, and then some bags of different types, okay? And working with what I like to call applied craft. Again, in Maharashtra, women have very, very minimal skills or exposure to embroidery. So it's just not part of the culture, just not part of the tradition. So, I chose to work with Katha stitch, which is one of the most basic embroidery, and it's also a craft form of Bengal. And, and also working with it on jute makes it easier for the women to be able to do this kind of embroidery. So contemporary products with a touch of tradition. So this is the kind of products that started to happen. So Ohrna as an organization started to evolve with the primary benefactors being the women that we work with, and Ohrna as a brand, which almost happened afterwards. Where our benefactors are our customers, wholesale and retail buyers, right? So what is the way we work? Let me just play this video for you. We do a prayer at the start of every day. And this is one of the first steps that the women have to learn to make, because jute is a natural fiber. And so I was talking to you about the Katha stitch. This is why it's easy for them to do it, because jute has holes. So this is, they were seeing some of the products made in Bengal, where people have a lot more of these embroidery skills.
Yeah, I think Jhumkee must be joining us back. Hey, Jhumkee, welcome back.
Jhumkee, need to unmute.
Is this good? Can you see my screen and hear me?
Yes, yes.
All right. So I'm just looking at the time. So our customers, wholesale buyers, which is what I have been recently trying to focus on. Who are they? What kind of people are these? These are small business owners typically who are interested in supporting mission-driven organizations, who care about sustainability and who are looking for different and unique products. And then retail customers, what we discovered is it's largely women in their early 20s to 60s or so, who care about handmade and fair trade, who are environmentally conscious and interested in leading a sustainable lifestyle, and who believe in empowerment of women. So the process that we follow, and what I did for about over 1.5 years, is create a prototype, create multiple prototypes, and then create these kits. So these kits were almost like, you know, the kits you create for children, with all the different parts of it, and you put it all together and take it. So I used to take these kits all in a big basket and take them with me to the village, and you know, conduct a workshop over there, and then give these kits to the women, and then they would work from their homes and then try to sell them online or otherwise. So this was the process. And in over here, you know, there was a lot of iterations in trying to make sure the product is easy to make. Okay, so I'll speak to you about the journey, and this is pretty much, you know, this captures what the journey was about. That you don't have to know all the answers right at the beginning of the business. Show up, do your best, learn from your mistakes, and keep putting one foot in front of the other with intention. I think this is what pretty much I started to do. So Ohrna's journey, with a launch towards the end of 2017, a basic launch in the US. I launched in the US, and with a very basic online shop, started to reach out to friends and family. And in the beginning of 2018, we were selected as a market incubator by this trade show in New York called NY Now, which gave us the opportunity to do 3 trade shows, which happened in August of 18, February of 19. And 2 of our products got shortlisted for the best product in 2 of the shows. And then at this show, a platform called FAIR asked us to join them. And it was a platform for wholesalers, which was a very good break for us. And then at the end of 2019, we decided to launch in India at a very big fair in Pune called Bhimtari Jatra, which has a design select section, which is for designers who are trying to you know, do work with people in rural areas, rural craftspeople and things like that. So that's where we launched. And then the last of the NY Now shows happened in February of 2020. And of course, after that, you know, COVID, etc. And there was a whole flurry of activity trying to cobble together online selling and things like that, trying to sell on various platforms, and you know, a whole lot of activities. And the second show that we were hoping for didn't happen in 2021 as planned. But in a few months later, another wholesaler in India started to carry our products. And last year, or rather this year, early this year, we were selected by Nest, an organization in the US that supports artisan-based businesses, and they have helped us with a couple of projects. One of which was, for the first time, they hired a consultant for us who actually did some market research for us, and to find out about the gaps in the market and what else we could do with our products. So some of the impacts that we have seen, roughly about 30 women have been trained and given work since inception. It is a floating population. Worked with women from 4 different villages, and from homemaker to artisan to entrepreneur. And this is Poonam and this is Seema. So Poonam had she worked very closely with me, and then she got the confidence to launch her own business, which was a very, very exciting time for me. It didn't work out, of course, through the COVID situation. Ranjana, who purchased a 2-wheeler and with the earnings from Ohrna, and it has completely changed her life. Seema managed to send her son to Sainik boarding school, which was her dream. Meena, who had never before made anything, and she never imagined that someone would buy something that she made. And I've already spoken to you about Jyoti. So I wanted to share with you some of the discoveries and the pitfalls along the way. So having working in US and in India, they're really opposite markets in so many different ways, and that was quite a discovery. Then in some ways, I feel like I chose some of the most difficult paths, but it is what it is, because our raw materials are not local. They all come from outside of Maharashtra. Our women makers are remote, most of them, and they're not next door or sitting with us all the time. This took me a long time to realize that jute is an unfamiliar material in the West. So people are concerned about, is it going to scratch my skin? Is it going to, can I wash it? Things like that. Our training effort and costs are very, very high, because it takes the women a very, very long time to get there, because these are essentially farmers and housewives. Quality continues to be a major challenge, because they definitely have never had the exposure, and they don't see why we need to make such a big fuss about quality. So it takes a long time for them to understand. Some of the insurmountable domestic barriers that, once they're trained and everything, one fine day their family decides they can't go to work anymore. So that ends things. And of course, the COVID accelerated e-commerce has been a challenge for the whole world, and especially for small businesses. It's been quite something. And running a small business with all the compliance and all the regulatory requirements and all that, export business has been very, very daunting. Still continues to be daunting. And of course, the supply demand conundrum that I face on a daily basis, given that, these women are a floating population, they can't be relied upon, and that kind of thing. And of course, you can't run an organization without having processes, systems, and all of those. And so trying to incorporate all of those in an unorganized sector has been quite a challenge. And of course, trying to figure out, how do I scale this model? So the focus at this time is, my focus is on B2B mainly. And for India, we have decided to focus on, the wedding vertical. So any of you who have upcoming weddings, or, people having weddings, please do get in touch with us. Getting back to live sales in exhibitions, because I think the kind of products we have, people need to see it and touch it and feel it. And sales efforts, of course, to grow the business, continuing to make the makers as the face of Ohrna. which is what my dream has been, and which I managed to do in the show that we did in India. So try and do more of that. Train them further. So just showing you some of the products, the most recent products that we make. Some of these containers, bottle holders, coasters. These are some of the home products. And then recently, trivets and tea towels. Some of these came about after our consultant advised us. This is one of our first products, a shopping tote inspired by the age-old jute bag that we grew up with, a shopping bag when we were children, and embellishing it a little bit. And then other kinds of bags, backpack of jute, and this is all hand embroidered by the women. This is also hand embroidered with the same very, very simple tata stitch. And then bags and pouches and totes and things like that. And then, small products. Some of these small products came about because we wanted to move towards zero waste. So all the fabric waste that we were generating, to try and create small products out of them to utilize some of those things. And then these are the people. Poonam, here she is working from her home. This is Sonam, and this is Kajal. Kajal is the one girl who's with me full time. And Seema, I shared with you. Meena has been with us for a long time now. Ranjana as well has been with us for a while. And Kajal has become quite an expert in photography now. So she does quite a few of our product photographs. And these are some of the other women, Shweta, Anju, and etc., Rihanna. So where else are my design abilities being used to create procedures like this, and all in Marathi, translated to Marathi, a job card, a maker's sheet, some of the quality control criteria that I have just tried to introduce, in desperation, trying to get some systems into getting quality. And now I'll show you some of the, what we speak to the world about Ohrna, as that we're a brand about sustainability, about women's empowerment, and using design as a tool for inclusion. And this is who we are. And we are very inspired by the women of India's villages. And we train them all for free. And we work with sustainable materials and things like that. And our artisanal products combine contemporary design with Indian craftsmanship. That is what our design philosophy is all about. And we work with jute, which is recyclable, 100% biodegradable. It is strong and a very durable fabric and plant fiber. And all our packaging, every product that you buy from Ohrna comes in a packaging made of upcycled saris. So people donate saris to us, and then we make these packaging out of it. This is the packaging for our containers. We train the women for free, and we, as I mentioned, we work very hard. So every product takes about 8 to 10 prototypes. About half of those are about trying to make the product easy to make. This is what Ohrna is about, basically building global bridges and using design as a tool for inclusion and empowerment. That's our website. We've been very active on Instagram, so you can see our journey on Instagram as well. So that's it from me, and I'm right on time.
Yes.
I will stop sharing now.
Yeah, you can stop sharing. Oh, perfect, Jhumkee. So you just dot on time. I love the fact that this is, it felt like a very human scale enterprise, and it came through very well. I also
Thank
love the fact that you started with a feeling. You did not start with a world-beating plan, but you started with the feeling. So very lovely to see that. And with that, we open up to questions. Yes, Inga, go ahead.
Thank you, Ohrna and Jhumkee, for this wonderful presentation. Uh, this thing that you talked twice about making it easier for the women to manufacture whatever is to be finally supplied to your customers. Uh, that sounds very interesting. I would rather say counterintuitive when one looks at the usual thought process behind manufacturing, where the more complex it is, the more difficult it becomes for potential competitors to copy it, or then you can also claim a greater value for it given its complexity and nuance, and I found this idea that making it simple for women to make it very interesting, and would like to hear a little bit more about it, as to how that works, and what goes into making things simpler and simpler, and when do you know that, okay, this seventh prototype is simple enough for me to now start manufacturing it at a greater scale.
I think it's been really, Ohrna has been about trial and error, and it's happened in that way. But one of the reasons that I would share with you is also, I'll give you an example. If you take this pouch, and it is also because the women creating a good finish on the inside is very, very difficult for the women. So a lot of the products, became this way because also so that, you don't see some of the mess outside. Okay. So accidentally, and by design now, most of our products are reversible, right? When do I realize that it's possible for the women? Now we know. It's been 4 years. So now we take something, and then I speak to some of the women, and then they tell me that, yeah, we'll be able to make it, and we'll be able to make it in an hour, or we'll need a day to make it. So we start, let's say, with the sixth prototype when they're making it, and then as they are making it and I'm observing, I'm thinking to myself, okay, this thing seems they're struggling with it, and they're never going to be able to make it neatly. So then let's see how else can we make it, and then that becomes the eighth prototype, and so on. And at one point, we know that it's easy, possible. I shouldn't say easy, possible for some of them to make.
Right, right. I also wanted to ask you, how did Ohrna stumble upon weddings as one of the markets or client? What made you go after that, and what else were on the uh, table which were left
Yeah,
behind apart from
sure.
B2B?
Yeah. So first off, I decided that I want to be in the B2B space because I want larger orders. It creates more work for the women. So if somebody is buying 200 instead of two, the women get that much more work. I was looking at hotels, I was looking at organic stores. We are in a couple of organic stores, but then I felt that, you know, um, weddings are a place where, first off, people order in large quantities. And they, also, people are not as, especially in India, where people are very, very price sensitive. And sometimes it gets very hard when you're working with sustainable fibers. You're trying to work with a lot of other costs to keep, to make things as cheap as plastic, which is what many people expect. So for all those reasons, I felt that, the wedding market is also one place where people are not as price sensitive, and they're willing to spend a little more. So those were some of the reasons.
So we have a question from
Thanks.
Nabajit. So Navajit says, thank you for your presentation. Are these women part of self-help groups? Yeah, so that's his question. Are these women a part of some self-help groups?
No, they're not. They're not.
Okay.
I started working with an NGO, which was Women's Bank. But then after a while, we didn't continue working with them. And today the women just come to me,
So
not
you
from any
kind of
group.
have developed some kind of a network. I mean, they come from your references.
Yeah, some of them bring others, and then some have heard from someone else, and they come. I think the biggest thing was at a point where they felt like they can trust me, and that trust is established now. So then other women also come.
Okay, so Navajit actually has a follow-up question. Do you have other supporting institutes working with you for training, knowledge, awareness, etc.?
No, I don't.
Okay.
You mean knowledge awareness for the women?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Okay.
I've been training them myself for the longest time. Now there two other of the women have gotten, um, you know, they've begun training as well.
Okay. So Raghuram, you have a question. Go ahead, Raghuram.
Jhumkee, it was very, very interesting. And I just wanted to know more about, you were talking of some kit you were carrying, right, in a basket. What is that kit basically? It is for them to replicate and do the designs, is it? What is that kit?
No. So the kit would be like if we're designing this coaster, it has like, or let's say, something like this. This is one of our luggage tags. Okay. So if we're designing this, this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts, and then the threads that have to be are used to embroider on it. So all of those would form the kit, the different parts of the product.
Okay,
That,
the parts which assembles into the product, right?
Correct.
Okay. You were talking of a B2B. Let's say, just for an example, just say huge B2B, something like a IKEA store or something like that. Do you think just with 13 people that uh, what you have done with 13 people, if you wanted to do with about lack of women across pan India, uh, uh, do you have any idea of how this could be just scaled, or have you just formed some kind of a small system which could be easily replicated, at least the process?
I don't know about easily replicated. I think we're getting to a point where it could potentially be replicated. But I think we need some more time. That's why the
I,
scaling is a challenge at this point.
I feel that if you build a process, it has a huge scope, both on one side to look for some huge B2B, because he will be asking you for a volume. I'm sure that such kind of a volume
Of course.
on a B2B, in a handmade, just with the women, that it is very difficult to scale up. Usually in this scale up, I was with 2 years with the National Center for Design and Product Development under Textile Ministry. There were 7,000 exporters across India. And I feel that I also suggest you should participate in 2 occasions of this exhibition in Pragati Maidan, Delhi, where they time it in such a way that all the buyers just come in. I think you should expose yourself or just to get in touch with them. Maybe you will get some few orders or huge B2B orders that you have an opportunity to get. Because the product is good, the cost is good. All you have to just work on the system of how this could be just replicated in a volume. See, design and customize, the issue is replication and the process and the system. I think
Yes.
if you're just able to work on that, I think it has a huge, huge scope.
Yes, I believe so. I agree. Um, just a little bit of a challenge how to get there, and it's a little daunting for me as well. But I'll keep that in mind.
I'll keep you posting and mail you that whatever those information when this occasion
Sure.
comes and you can see the opportunity, right?
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
So Jhumkee, while you're waiting for more questions, is the business, floating on its own right now completely?
Yes, it is. Reasonably well. I mean, not doing, you know,
Sure, sure. So I mean,
yeah.
you are able to draw a salary, and your people who work with you are also able to get have a sustainable livelihood. So if you are able to create that and you have learnings in the last 5 years, I think looks like you're ready for the next jump, and maybe
I
more
don't take
learnings.
salary, but yeah, the women have a livelihood.
Okay, great. Manisha, go ahead. Your question.
Hi, Manisha.
Manisha, you might
Manisha, you
need
need
to
to unmute.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me? Hey, hi, Jhumkee. I am just glad I attended this presentation. I have no question. We talked about this, but I didn't know the kind of work you did here. So hats off. And I think more than a salary, the livelihood and the fact that you're creating the livelihood is commendable. So great job. Thanks.
Thank you.
So, Jhumkee, what would be your advice to someone who's just starting out on a journey like this, a journey like yours?
Don't choose the most difficult path like I did. Um, you know, make it a little more focused initially. I think I was completely, in a sense, if you look at it, I launched this from the backside. What can the women make? And then these are the things they can make. Okay, now throw it out in the market and let's see which clicks. And some of them clicked, some of them didn't. But that's okay. I think it's been an amazing journey for me. But if someone's doing it, I think I would have definitely done it differently if I was younger. I launched this when I was 57, and my advice would be to spend some more time, focus a little more, take a smaller piece of the pie, and do some of the research that we did later down the road, a little more upfront. So your efforts are going, you're getting more returns for your efforts.
So yes, I think in a critical thing that you said is, if you were younger, you would do it a little differently. Could you just build
Absolutely.
on that a little more?
Yeah, I think I would have waited longer, would have researched the market some more. I would have spent done more due diligence, but I was in a big hurry, and I'm still in a big hurry, because I want this to, the goal is that this becomes an organization for the women, and they are growing, like some of the girls and the women that I talked to you about. They've learned photography, they're learning to, even some of the design inputs, they kind of put it together and say, is this okay? And a lot of those things that they are growing. So I think, yeah.
Okay. No, thank you. Thank you. Ravi, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Jhumkee, it's a great presentation. First of all, on behalf of all of us, I also like to pass the congratulations to all those women who participated in this, because they deserve a big round of applause for what they have done. The question that I have is, as you are deciding on the products, the kind of products that you showed, is there a possibility that there is products which is meant for a local market, the rural market itself. Did it ever occur to them, these people who are producers of this product are getting sold probably in the urban market? Maybe I'm making that conclusion. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. But is there a possibility that they also look at evolving products which are relevant and useful in their market, which probably would push them the incentive to look at the market and produce it far more than what they are doing for a market that they are not seeing? Just a thought, just a question. I don't know if you have a thought on that.
No, we have not explored that. They have spoken about fairs and events in their areas, and I have told them, just go ahead. If you want to try and launch it there, find out. But then they've never had the confidence or the ability to do it, and I've never had the time to go explore that. So no, the answer is no.
Okay.
Venkatesh, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Jhumkee, for the wonderful presentation. My question is about something you mentioned in your presentation. You said these women do not have the exposure, and they don't understand why all the fuss about the quality, right? So that kind of struck me as very important, and it is not unique to the business that you are in. I mean, I find it all across.
Sure.
You see,
yes,
you an electrician or a plumber you work with, and then
yes,
they do this stuff, and you talk to them about, I mean, can you do it a little better? Can you not
yeah.
do that or this? And the first reaction is that, no, why is this guy making such a fuss about something that seems to be all right to me, right?
Yes.
So I have a theory about this, that, I mean, these are people who have picked this profession because it is not something that they have learned formally, or they have not been imbibed culturally, and therefore they see it as something that they do, and most of the time what they do is good enough for most of the customers they deal with. I mean, even in IDC office, for example, you go there, people will type out memos with full of spelling mistakes, lots of errors and all that, and you point to them and they say, I mean, what's the fuss? I mean, why are you picking on these kinds of small things, right? On the other hand, India has an incredible culture of craft, where very fine craft exists, and this is traditional crafts that passed down through families, and they value, and they know how to do really good quality work, right? I mean, that's because they've been there doing this for generations, and as children they imbibe this culture, and then they kind of practice it as well, right? So in your case, I mean, these women pick up this stuff. They work with unfamiliar material. They learn stitching probably for the first time, and they are serving a market they cannot even identify with. For example, they will never use a laptop, but they're creating laptop bags and luggage tags and so on, right? So these are.
But it's very exciting for them, especially like when I tell them that this product is going to Chicago, and then it really excites them. Yeah, please finish.
So I just want to how do we tackle this quality issue, right? I mean, how does one value quality in what they do, especially in a profession or area of work that they are not, born into, or or have had long training and stuff like that. I mean, you're working with small time frames as well, right? I mean, you cannot spend years and years on these women to kind of inculcate that culture in them, right? You're working with short periods of time, and most of the time we deal with people for a short duration of time. How do we bring up this quality consciousness, in people who kind of pick up professions that they may not, sometimes even like, for that matter?
Yeah, so that's a good question. That's what I've been battling with from day one. I continue to battle with it every single day. So one of the slides that I showed you, the quality metric, that is something I created last month. checklist. And I'm calling that a self-check, that every product, they must check off those points. So it is a huge challenge. But in my case, I have chosen to work with these women. The crafts people you're talking about who do such fine work, those are artisans.
Yes.
They come from a family of, generations of doing that kind of work. And they take a lot of pride in that craft or that art. These are not artisans. These are, ordinary
exactly the point,
housewives
right? Yes.
and farmers and all. I think in India, we just have a culture of like the chalta hai thing is one part of it. And I think a very big realization that has come to me is that, the kind of lives, and having been in their homes and been so closely a part of their lives, the kind of lives they have where they're worrying about, how is my next meal, not that extent, but, where's my next meal coming from, or how am I going to pay next month's rent? How does it matter, if this black dress is stitched with a red thread? It still hangs together on your body. So if you understand it from their perspective, that's how it is.
Yeah, that's my. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No. So I to answer your question, I think the only thing is time. It takes a lot of time, and you have to just keep on and on and on and on. I've used penalties, I've used incentives, I've used various ways to make that happen. And it is starting to happen now slowly. One person is very good. There are two more that are really picking it up. So it takes a lot of time and a lot of patience. I don't see any other way. If you're working with people like this, if you're working with artisans, it's a very different scenario.
Yeah. But so I'm wondering if probably we should look at quality through a different lens altogether. Like, so considering from where they are from and what they do and the lives that they lead, are we imposing too much for things that are probably very trivial to them, but somehow we, in a way that we are being snobbish, is what I feel. When I tell my electrician that I mean the pipe is a little crooked, I mean, and then he's saying, I mean, he looks at me and says that I mean, I have a few more things to do, and you are delaying me here. You're keeping me for half an hour more to fix it, and I would have probably earned a little bit more if I had gone and finished this and gone away, right? So in a way that I mean, is it all right to compromise on what we design educated people value as quality? The whole idea of quality itself, is it something that we should probably rethink?
Well, customer is king, right? So at the end of the day, if that's what the customer needs, that's what I tell them. I say, who's paying your salary? And they say, you. And I say, no, it's the customer who you're making these things for. And if they like it, they will order again. So it's, if the customer was okay with that quality, sure, I agree with you. That's what we should do. We are making a huge, big fuss. At the end of the day, does it really matter? If you think about it from their worldview, it is really a big, big fuss that we make about quality. But at the end of the day, when you or I go to the market to buy something, are you going to buy something that's shoddily made? You won't. You won't say, oh, they're learning, or they're poor things, they're whatever it is.
Okay. Thank you, Jhumkee.
Sure.
So Jhumkee, I think we might have we might have time just for one question, and possibly I'll ask that. Most of your, I think all of your business happens online. So you sell through various online platforms.
Right now it does, yeah.
Right. So could you dwell on that a bit? What are your challenges there? What is it that again? What is it that we can learn from you on that count?
Yeah. I think it's a little cheaper to sell online, definitely, or lower costs, but it is so much harder. And I understand now some of the things that I didn't understand earlier about how important photography is, because that's all a customer has to go by, right? If you see, something like this in a store, you touch it, you feel it, and you look at it and you say, oh, I like that. But online, it's just so much harder to get someone to buy something. So I find it a lot harder. Inventory management has been a big challenge because we have products in 2 or 3 different places. That has been a big challenge, but it's also been a lot of fun. And I guess because I've worked with software for so many years, when you crack something and get this thing working, and you see the back end and the front end, there's something fun about it, and that's something I enjoy. Though I feel that the kind of products we have, they do much better if they were in a store, if people could see it and feel it. So, but the world is what it is today, right? You can't run away from online.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense. So thank you again. Thank you for that very engaging talk, Jhumkee. I'm sure a lot of us here are now inspired to follow your footsteps, and we might want to reach out to you to know more about your journey and to get advice from you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again next week for our 46th alumni talk. Good night, and I'll stop recording now.
Thank you.
Jhumkee, do you have any plan to? I think